never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, g'day, beautiful people. How are ya? How are ya? How are ya? Well, but look at the chat. Some of you are wet. Some of you are windy. Some of you are bloody cold. I understand how that is. Sorry, I'm not looking at you. I'm just trying to get my phone to balance in a precarious little spot. Oops. And now, for some reason, it's starting to dictate. Oh, I don't want it to do that. I need to hit that button. God, fat finger disease tonight or what? Well, I hope wherever you are, you're dry, you're warm, and get set. Tonight's going to be a little interesting. Probably going to raise the hackle on one or two or three or four. Let's get into the chat to begin with, though. And I did see a whole heap of comments early in. Who was first up? The lovely Gail, followed by Dave. Hope you're doing all right, brother. And the lovely Sunflower, who was telling us her tick story. I don't think I shared that with you. I think she shared that with me a little while ago. But I don't think I let everybody know about it, so to speak. But she got a tick bite, and it affected her voice, of all things. So she's still recovering, I think 4 or 5 weeks later. So still recovering from that. And ticks are something you want to be, well, careful of for a variety of reasons. However, the bastards, let's call them, because I can't swear too strongly at this early juncture of YouTube, but let's call them those B words. They have been engineering ticks and a certain kind of tick that will make you very sick, or at least will put you off meat, mammalian meat, for the rest of your life. No more beef, no more lamb, no more pork. Don't know how you go with chicken, but I'm pretty much of the idea that it's all meat products. If you manage to get bitten by this tick, and it is prevalent in the United States at the moment, never been seen before anywhere, not in any great numbers. This is the kind of thing that if you did get it back in the day, it was, 1 in 10,000 kind of ticks. But now appearing to be a lot more aligned with what the evil bastards are doing over there, and a lot more are showing up. So be prepared. I believe that too could happen here in Australia. And of course, we have a wonderful tick season. And from far north Queensland, I mean, everybody's aware of them up there. And just work your way south at various different times of the year. I think it's only in the really colder climes that you don't get them. Or if you do get them, I bet the bastards will be bloody tough. Hardy is the word. There are various different ways and means of getting a tick out. The idea is not to leave the head in, because the head can get infected. Don't grab them and squeeze them by the arse, because they'll push more poison into you. I think that's the theory behind it. There are special tick removal tools which you can use, or if you're good with a pair of tweezers or a sharp blade. I've also been told if you put isopropyl on their bum, they'll back themselves out, and I've seen that work with a match as well, or a hot lighter. So you get your lighter. Here's an old trick. Get your lighter and heat up that little metal bit. Put the lighter off, put the metal bit on the tick. It'll back itself out. Always handy to have a lighter if you're out in the bush, folks. And even better to have waterproof matches. Just saying. G'day, Paul. Hope you're all right. I saw further in the chat you're off fishing, going for some of those pink snapper. Good luck. You're over in WA, I think, from memory. So I didn't think you were allowed to catch them over there. Are you allowed to catch any fish in WA? Certainly not if you're a commercial fisherman, I don't think. I think you've got to go basically to Indonesia and start robbing their fishing grounds, which is pretty weird because they'd be passing you on the way there, coming to rob ours. It's a weird thing going over there in Western Australia at the moment. Very, very strange indeed. The lovely Connie is in the house, and Hello, Thomas. Hope you're doing all right. G'day, Alan. Life, the universe, and everything goes on for all of you. Last night, I mentioned Debbie, who the is Debbie, and never got around to telling you who the Debbie was. So Debbie is someone very close to one of our family members. And when I say that, it is because the photo I'm about to show you, being this one, is a photo of Debbie. Now, that is an Aslav that was, or sorry, a Bushmaster, I beg your pardon. That was, I'll just try and take that off. That was hit by a IED back in 2012. I want to say it was on June the 10th. I did have the little bit of blurb up about it, I thought, but maybe I've tried to upload too many things and it has uploaded or hasn't uploaded. So I'm sorry for that. I can't find it immediately off the top of my head either. So I can't tell you too much more about it other than the fact that that photo was taken by a fellow by the name of Stu Moran. Now, Stu is the son of Connie and Alan in the chat. And Stu was traveling in the Bushmaster behind this one. And I'm pleased to report that the 6 members of the Australian Defence Force that were inside that Aslav, which if you have a close look, Aslav, I keep going to say that, I beg your pardon, it's a Bushmaster. If you have a look on top of it, it's carrying everything, including the kitchen sink. How do we know that? Well, this was such an amazing vehicle that it was shipped back to Australia and now forms part of the Australian War Memorial tribute to Afghanistan, the early years, I guess, let's call it. Because we've been there now, I think, for somewhere in the vicinity of 25 years, thereabouts. So this is Debbie, the actual Debbie, faithfully reconstructed from the photo of Stewie, taken by Stewie, Deb's son. No, Deb's. God, what am I saying? Connie's son. It's getting confusing now, folks. Thank you, Stu, for your service, mate. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you next time you're home. It'll be a bloody good day. I look forward to that. He is actually nominated at the War Memorial as, or credited as the photographer on that too. So absolutely tremendous. Congratulations for getting that work, and it'll be there now in perpetuity. So tremendous, and thank you very much for your service, mate. Really appreciate it. All right, let me just go back to the chat and see what else we had going on in here tonight. The lovely Sandy poked her head in with some awful news. Might have to get our healers onto this. I don't think, well, I'm not sure the permissions that you had from Sandy's mum last time to heal her might still carry over, I'm hoping. Sandy's mum was put into John Hunter Hospital yesterday due to a blocked artery in her neck. You might recall that Sandy turned up at her parents' place a few weeks back now and found the local jabber there just wiping up his needles, getting ready to leave after giving them COVID and flu vaccinations, both of them. And they're in their 90s, these two wonderful people. Mum went straight to hospital the next day, I think it was. And similar, I'm not sure if it was the same thing, similar thing, I think. So, God, fingers crossed that all goes well there. And I know Sandy will be watching back later, so God love you, Sandy, and thoughts and prayers are with you, and hopefully the healing team will be doing what they can do as well. Dave, the dog story, throwing snags at nasty people and telling the dogs to fetch would be funny. Yes, that might be that. G'day, Robert. I hope you are well. Andrew, hope you are well. The lovely Aussie Sue never, ever lets us forget. Give us a thumbs up, folks. It really does count. I can't see how many there are at the moment, but as many thumbs up as we could get would be ideal. So do that. And if you're not already subscribed to the main Voice of Freedom channel on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@VOF, then please be a part of that one. Some chat there from Sunflower saying still getting over the tick bite. Yep, we've been through all of that. Paul, getting geared up for your fishing trip. That's I knew I'd seen that somewhere. Good luck with that one. Absolutely persistently precipitating in WA at the moment. Well, that'll either make it easier or much harder for you to catch said pink snappers. I decided I better bring it up and have a little bit of a look. So over there on the West Coast at the moment, yes, it does seem to be a little bit. I'll put the rain on. Oh, yep. All right. Well, there does seem to be a bit of rain coming. And if we scroll out, I'm going to say you're probably going to get a bit of rain for the next few days. I don't know where you're going to be catching those fish. Maybe you've got them in a tank out the back. And over here onto the East Coast, where they're saying the next few days are likely to be quite rough in places. I saw somebody mention that it was pouring down in Coffs Harbour as well. Certainly looks to be like that at the moment, pretty much from the Gold Coast south. Tweed Heads, saw one of you guys saying Tweed Heads was windy as. So let's just have a quick look at what the wind's doing. Yeah, well, it's certainly blowing, isn't it? I'll try and drop a flag in. 13 knots there at the border. Out to sea a bit. What's it doing out there? 20 out there. Up towards North Stratty, 19. 14, 10, slowing down a bit up around Brisbane, up the sunny coast. Bribey, I won't put the spot right on Greg's place, but what that has been floating around lately, I was talking to him yesterday, 16 knots. So it is blowing a bit as we head up the coast. So be careful, folks. Be safe if you are out there amongst it. The rain is, I heard a little bit of it before, just starting to come down. So be safe. Black Sheep is in the house. So too is Angie. I hope you are doing well. Talking about collecting things. You're talking about collecting different metals. Good on you, girl. Well done. Bloody great job. If you are looking to add to that collection, of course, ainsleyBullion.com.au. And if you want to go in, you can go into Melbourne or the Gold Coast or the Brisbane stores. However, you can save yourself the wait and the need to pull out your license and identify yourself by just going online. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. And if you put my name or the Voice of Freedom in the notes section of your order, you'll get a little bit off. And, well, a little bit, every little bit counts. Every little bit counts. Just trying to scroll down. Paul. Ah, Paul, that's very beautiful of you. Paul, thank you very much. Thanks. I can't thank you enough. Discovered something late this afternoon with my car, which is becoming a real problem. Well, it will be a problem because I've got to drive to Canberra in about 10 days. And I've got a check engine light on for no real apparent reason. I don't know what's going on. But it did drop something on the ground today, and it's not oil, and yet it's dark. It's hard. It dropped it on dirt, so I don't really know what color it is. But at any rate, it doesn't seem to be drying up, which makes it worrisome. So, mate, you're $26. I appreciate it. I've got a funny feeling I've got to spend a bit of money on that car before I take it south. It doesn't need a service. It shouldn't need a service. It hasn't done enough Ks yet. Pete from Pinaroo. Now, that's why I had my phone up here, because you sent me a very large message about goings on in South Australia, which I thought was a bit weird. So, folks, in Victoria, we all know the big build is proving to be the big rort. And if you have a job that requires a tradie, you're very, very, very unlikely to be able to get one, because those tradies are all on the big build, and they're doing littler hours, shorter hours for much, much, much bigger money. So this becomes a little bit of a problem, particularly if you're trying to get something done, built around the house or fixed around your house. Insurance assessors, I'm told, are having the same sorts of issues. Well, in Adelaide, let me tell you, they have a bit of a build going on themselves. It's called the Southern Expressway Tunnel. And so far, that tunnel is $6 million in the red. It's also managed to dig itself into the aquifer. That can't be good. They're getting a new tunnel boring machine over to cut some crossovers for when there is an emergency or traffic blockages and that kind of thing. Yes, that is generally done on all tunnels. I'm pretty confident there are 4 tunnels dug. Usually there is an access way dug down the center between, if you like, the 2 tunnels, and then access points from that tunnel to the surface, unless that surface is under a river, in which case you got to run a while before you can get up a ladder and get out the top. At least that's how I understand Brisbane's to be working. And I'm pretty confident that the tunnel that nobody's using in Melbourne works like that as well. So they've got access just for fire and emergency. I know that's how the cross tunnel works in the UK. There are various access points, and people can get out either side, I believe, of their respective trains and be able to get into an access tunnel that's, safe and will keep them safe from flames and all that kind of thing. So I'm sure they'll have the same kind of thing. At any rate, you're getting a new tunnel boring machine. That cost has been totally overlooked and is now a variation clause, which will exceed the $60 billion project cost and agreement. Adelaide is going to be as broke as Melbourne, except it's all of Victoria, I think, that's broken. I guess the rest of South Australia might go the same way. It might be why he says, thanks, Pete, for this too, by the way, it might be why the South Australian government is pushing to open mining exploration and fast-track those approvals. Tailem Bend is getting an AI data centre too. That'll use the water out of the Murray, of course, and a solar farm. There are plenty of those going up around the area. I saw that when I was down there with Vince recently. And there's also a box to tick if your sheep feed around or under the panels. This affects the price of the sheep, as it's possibly contaminated food residue, cyanide, acetate, aluminium, erosion products, all that sort of crap that falls onto the grass and these sheep eat it. So you can graze your sheep on there, but you're not going to get anywhere near the top price for those sheep. Shit, Pete. Thanks for that, mate. Wow. Yep, a lot more crap, Giselle. That is exactly what we are looking at. A lot more crap. Well, we could always do what David Adler did. Who is David Adler? David Adler used to head up one of the very large Jewish associations. In fact, he headed up the Australian Jewish Association. But he has decided that Australia is just too scary to live in. He was on the Bolt Report recently. Check.
I'm the head of the Australian Jewish Association, and he joins me now. David, great to see you again. You were actually born in Melbourne. Why did you move?
Andrew, thank you for your comments. And I've passed, I guess, the ultimate no confidence motion in Australia. Unfortunately, I was born in Melbourne, as you say. I've lived all of my life in Australia, other than going away for holidays, apart from the last few days. And it's not the same country. And I have officially emigrated from Australia and done what's called Aliyah to Israel, which is a Hebrew term for elevation, and it's regarded as an elevation when you come to Israel.
It's regarded as an elevation when you come to Israel. This is an Australian-born man who has grown up in Melbourne, lived in Melbourne all his life. I dare say is very well travelled. Probably went to the best Jewish schools. And when I say travelled, he probably travelled around Hawthorne and Caulfield and Kew, and probably not too farther afield unless it was going to the airport to go somewhere special like, I don't know, Tel Aviv for holidays. It's clear already in the first sentences that this bloke puts Australia second because he had somewhere he could run to and be elevated, thought of as a much more enlightened or elevated person because he went home to Israel.
From anywhere else, for a combination of both pull and push factors. I mean, Israel is the most remarkable country. It's got a depth of history and culture that fuses with the high tech and modernity.
Yep, it's got Temple Mount, Jerusalem, all those amazing religious relics, and an iron dome protecting it from the missiles that seem to be being lobbed at it from whoever happens to be this week's enemy. Just saying.
Like nowhere else. But also, unfortunately, there's been, particularly over the last few years, a build-up of negativity in Australia, a decline measured by many, many parameters, and, of course, the anti-Israel extremism and anti-Semitism, which has exploded as well. And all these things combined has led to our decision. So we've made it. We're selling up, moving our contribution from Australia to Israel.
Moving our contribution from Australia to Israel. Okay. Well, shit, thanks for that. That's a pretty significant contribution too. Anyway, he didn't end there. He had a few more things to say.
A lot of Jews tell me that they don't feel safe in Australia. You're not that safe in Israel in a sense too. I mean, you've got countries pointing firing missiles at Israel as well. It's essentially been at war for years now. Even so then, what is the difference between Israel and Australia on that front in your sense of feeling safe, secure and at home?
Well, Andrew, I can tell you that it takes about 10 or 15 minutes to be aware of the difference. As soon as you start walking around, you see Israeli flags everywhere. There is a strong sense of identity and
Australian flags are not allowed to be flown in public places most days unless they're on a government building. If you walk around with an Australian flag, as someone recently proved, you're going to be accosted by the police and abused by certain immigrants who come into this country. Australia used to be very proud of its flag, and there was a great sense of community in Australia. There was.
Purpose. And the other thing that you realise very quickly is that the people are generally happy, optimistic, friendly, on a level that may have existed in Australia years ago, but seems to have deteriorated significantly. There is.
Yeah, I would agree. 100% deteriorated very significantly. Why do we think that is? Could it be because Australians have been disarmed, and if you go to Israel, you'll be much safer? You've got the IDF to look after you.
Worry at all about, the external threats. We've got a lot of confidence in the IDF. And every Israeli premises has to have protection and security. Every home.
This is a very, 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 very wealthy man. You can't tell me for 1 second that if he felt he was in some kind of danger, they already live in a very cloistered, very secure environment. You can't tell me that they don't already have the best security that money can provide. And now they're sick and tired of paying for it for themselves. They want us, of course. They want somebody else to pay for it. I always want somebody else to pay for it.
Has a safe room. The Border Police and the IDF do a magnificent job. And I can tell you, just walking around, I feel much more comfortable and actually safer in Israel than I do in Australia.
Safer in Israel than you are in Australia. Well, it gets better, because it's not just Israel he feels safer. And why wouldn't you? The IDF, everybody there, as they say, has a safe room in their house. But everybody there who has grown up there has gone through their national conscription thing, or everybody does 2 years, I think, service in the military. And everybody gets to take their rifle home with them. It's part of the deal. They've got to be kept current with it. And their whole uniform, their whole everything is there, ready to go. Even expats, like, I don't know, Avi probably, potentially has this kind of setup. All of that uniform and everything, he will either have here, and the weapon will be stored at a place he'll have to report to in Tel Aviv, or wherever it is. But he'll probably have all his gear here, or at least stored somewhere there where he can get to it very quickly and arrive at the appointed time, at the appointed place, when he is called, because we all know they all come when they're called. So at any rate, Mr. Adler didn't wait to be called. He thought it was best just to piss off.
Through the UAE, through Abu Dhabi, and I was wearing my kippah.
Okay, Jewish man, very wealthy Jewish man going through the UAE. He's in Abu Dhabi. Remember that?
And around me were devout Muslims dressed in their long cloaks with their headgear and their beards. None of them insulted me. None of them gave me dirty looks. And I would add, in supporting what the ambassador said, I also felt more comfortable in the UAE than in Australia nowadays. So
more comfortable in the UAE than Australia these days. Felt very comfortable. No Muslims abused him. Nobody with a beard and wearing a gown abused him or carried on. That leads me to, well, a couple of potential thoughts. One being that we must only be importing the abusive ones here. Could that be right? I'm not sure how many Muslims we are actually importing from Abu Dhabi. Have you ever been there? I've got to say that if you are an Arab living in Abu Dhabi, then you are probably not going to be coming to Australia for anything other than a bit of a holiday and to see a koala, cuddle a kangaroo, dodge a stingray. That's about why you're coming to Australia. You're not coming here to live. And Dubai, what's the other way around? Dubai, the playground for the wealthy, they've tried to turn it into a Disneyland in the desert and have done a pretty good job. They need that tourism money because they have no oil left. Abu Dhabi's been funding Dubai for years. And Abu Dhabi got in a little bit on the world's kind of move. They have the Ferrari world there, I've got to say. Even though I'm not a big Ferrari fan, if you've got to go to Abu Dhabi, I would say that that racetrack and Ferrari world would be two things you would definitely be catching me at. But at any rate, the boiled frog here is all concerned about living in Australia, doesn't feel safe. Doesn't feel safe because, well, we've let in a bunch of criminals who've been allowed to go lawless, particularly on the streets of Victoria where this man came from. Now, who did that? Oh, that's right. That's the Labor Party. Now, I've got to tell you that this fella and a number of his friends have been very heavily involved, or at least it's my understanding that they have been very heavily involved for many years in the background politics of the Victorian and the National Liberal parties. What they've seen recently with the rise of One Nation is what he is referring to as extremism. That's the extremism he is referring to, not people, run around the streets with knives and carrying on. The extremism is the lack of Liberal National Party control that they will have, because judging on what's happening at the moment, there's not going to be enough of them left to make much of a difference. Although Pauline's numbers have gone down again this week. They are polls, who really cares? But it is showing that One Nation have been able to get a lot of people to swing their way with their vote. So be aware, One Nation pushing very, very hard at the moment in Victoria to start announcing people running in seats, I am told. They have a person in mind to be the leader of the party, if you like, in Victoria. And I'm not sure that person has even been announced yet too. So there are a few interesting little things going on in the background with One Nation at the moment. But I would like to think that what's happened here with Mr. Adler is that he's been scared out of the country because he loses his protections, he loses his influence, he loses, and not just him, the Jewish people that he represents with the Australian Jewish Council or Jewish group. There are about millions of them, these bloody Jewish groups, but he led one of the significant ones for many, many moons. And now an Australian who sees that our country is being changed for the worse, unless he's a stupid man, and I doubt that he is, he would be able to clearly identify that it is the Labor Party, for the most part, that has brought this on, particularly in the last 5 years. And what is his first reaction? The man is a coward. A coward. A lucky coward, because he can run home to be elevated.
About it a lot. It's not an easy decision. And I frankly refuse to be the proverbial frog in the hot water. I can see what's happening in Australia. Some people say that Australia is approaching a tipping point. My assessment is that it has reached and passed the tipping point.
And I think that tipping point is the polls. I'd nearly lay money on it. This isn't a man who would be frightened of anything else. He's just frightened of losing power, in my opinion.
Semitism and the insults and abuse and all that at universities, wherever. But the difference is that you, over there, you are surrounded by people who have your back. And here you can't be sure.
Look,
Hang on.
100%.
Let's just go back to Bondi in December of last year. And let's just go back to the mad Pakistani, I think he was, wasn't he? Running around waving a gun. The older bloke, the one that wound up dead. The one that was disarmed by an Arab man in his 70s. People don't care. For the people that were shot, and for the people who were wounded, and for the others who cowered for their lives, protected their children, and hid from a mad, raving friggin' lunatic firing his rifle. Brave people, not just police, brave people ran toward the gunfire, toward the gunman. How dare you say nobody's got your back? Now, I don't know how many of the Jewish people being shot at were running towards the gunman, but I'm sure on Sky News somewhere they will have done a head count on that, and it'll be in one of their reports. We can probably find
Everyone's
out.
aware that within the last few days, the very good and effective Israeli ambassador to Australia, Hillel Newman, actually called out Australia as having irrational and an order of magnitude of hate that he hadn't experienced elsewhere. Our trip here was through the UAE, through Abu Dhabi, and I was wearing my kippah, and around me were
Yeah. Heard that. I think Australia's probably better off without him, although Albo and co will be very upset because no doubt he represents a fairly significant tax input to the nation. Or maybe he doesn't because, well, you know, who pays tax these days? In fact, I've got a question to ask regarding tax, and that tax being fuel excise. Now, I've heard, but I don't know if this is true. So if there is anybody out there that can confirm this for me, I would be really interested to hear your thoughts. I am reliably informed that Toll, the big parcel moving mob, they don't pay Bowser price. You probably wouldn't expect them to. They don't pay Bowser price for any of their fuel. They don't get a discount like on a fuel card, like many companies like you probably own. They don't get one of those sorts of discounts, no. The discount that Toll gets is gate price at the refinery, the lowest price that there is. And Toll pay no fuel excise at all. Now, that's what I've been told. I haven't been able to confirm that through company sources, if you like, but I'm very reliably informed that that's how it works. And if you could help and confirm that, Carl at vofhq.com. Very interested. Also, Linfox. Linfox have got a big deal. Now, you might look at their deal and say, they'd be getting something similar, except they're not. Believe it or not, Linfox has more trucks on the road. And, of course, we've just forked out $90 million, or was it more than that, to Linfox so that they could buy 20 electric trucks, which obviously aren't going to cost them anything at the Bowser, but, well, it is going to cost somewhere. I would pretty much lay London to a brick that there'll be a big generator somewhere on that Linfox site to make sure that those battery chargers can work 24/7. At any rate, Linfox appear, I can't confirm this at the moment, but I would love it if you could help me confirm it. Linfox appear to pay mining company fuel rates. So that means that they're getting it above gate price, but less than the wholesale price, which is what servos would be paying. They also don't pay any road access tax. So diesel vehicles at the moment have got to pay this extra fee because of their damage to the roads, like it's meant for heavy vehicles. And that can be, another $300 or $400 added onto your fuel bill, depending on, how many sides you're filling up and how big are your sides. So bearing in mind, some of these trucks will carry 2,500 litres of diesel, 1,300 a side. And it's all going to be paid for before they leave the servo. And then they get slapped this extra road access tax on top of it. Now, if that is the case, Linfox and Toll are both private companies. And how is it they're able to get those sorts of deals? It doesn't make any sense. You can see here well, this is all to do with voting, of course, but an ABN means you are a company, and if you are a company, you have certain responsibilities in ways and things you have to act in. And I don't think that Toll and Linfox, by the sounds of it, are biting off the same size of the cherry as, let's say, any trucking company owned by a privateer. Now, there's a fella called Terry I've been trying to get a hold of to have a bit of a chat about this. He's a hard man to find. Busy man, probably driving trucks or making sure others are. However, I hope to get him on for a bit of a chat because he's a wealth of knowledge and we'll be able to get a bit of an overview of not just what's happening in the east coast of Australia or down the east coast, but also some things that are happening in the west coast as well. But do you think that that's fair, folks? Is it fair that these snots of human beings are able to manipulate a deal whereby their company pays much less tax than your company does? Isn't that what this whole budget mess was meant to be about? Making it pay a little better tax-wise, making the corporates pay their tax, supposedly. They haven't. They've come after us instead. This is just another piece of the bullshit that these political solutions will provide. Just keep moving on. I'll get off this before I start getting very angry. Well, we'll get angry about this instead. 1 million Aussies, young Aussies, under 40, struck with some form of cancer. That's what the latest figures show. Doctors, as I said last night, seem to be scratching their heads and being absolutely baffled. They can't understand for a moment why this might be environmental. Well, it might be environmental if these people are standing outside a lot and they're getting this shit that they're spraying on us, dribbling onto their skin and being absorbed through it, because we all know how fine that powder is. I'm hopeful that this weekend a mate of mine's going to be going up near a beach. I saw a very interesting video with some ladies in the US picking up black sand along a beach with a magnet and then watching what that black sand did. The only place that sand, what we thought was black sand could have come from is above. The only place. So very interesting to see how that happened. And I'll edit the video so I can show it to you, unless I can get a mate of mine to whiz down with a magnet. And you never know, we might be able to see something that will help our judiciary and our medical professors to come to terms with what's gone on. And what has gone on, Rand Paul seems to have a very, very good idea of. For years, Anthony Fauci funded gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab, then lied about it. He declassified documents show that he didn't just fund it, he personally shaped what the intelligence community told the American people about COVID's origins. 18 agencies relied on his guidance, not just 18 agencies. The world relied on what he said. He and the World Health Organization were responsible for these rollouts. They were responsible for these mandates. They were responsible for propagating the lies that's ended the lives so far of an estimated 17 million people. And I'm sure you know a couple of them at least. We all do. Sadly, before 2030, we're going to know a whole heap more. That's the worst bit about it. Also, some other interesting things happening with immigration in other parts of the world. Now, we've seen what's going on in the UK, and Tommy Robinson is putting together some very effective protests in opposition to everything that's going on in the UK at the moment. Their Starmer stepped down in the last 24 hours, I want to say, made one of the most ineffectual, whimping, crying, I'm leaving Parliament speeches I've ever seen. He just looks like that private kind of schoolboy. I bet him and Alexander Downer would have been great mates in the boot locker at school after being put there by some bigger boys. It's just the kind of thing I think they'd be into. At any rate, in France, there are so many beautiful, wonderful people in France. Some of them own 16th century, castle-like places that they rent out for B&Bs. And when they see so many poor immigrants flooding into their country, illegal immigrants with nowhere to stay, and coming up into winter, they come and say, can we pitch our tent on your garden, on your lawn, please, because we just have nowhere else to go. So you take pity on them and you give them one of your units, a self-contained unit, and you give it to them at a very, 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 very good rate, meaning next to nothing. And then when they don't pay the rent after 6 months, you ask them to leave. Well, doesn't quite work like that. A Frenchman has been kicked out of his own home by an illegal immigrant family that he took in. They have now gone to court, got an order that says they're not going anywhere. This man thinks he now has to sell the property. I think he has 8 like Airbnb type rooms or cottages. And he's now at such a point where French justice is nowhere to be seen. He, in the goodness of his heart, invited these people in, gave them a room, could have left them in the tent for winter, but no, gave them a room, and they've now abused that to a point where how's he going to be able to sell the place with those kinds of tenants in one of those rooms? He's never going to be able to sell it. It's just horrifying, the thought of this. Horrifying. Here's a less horrifying thought. 500,000 households have cancelled their TV license, putting the future of the BBC in jeopardy. Yeah! That is probably the best news I've had all day. Now, this should give those LBGTQ ABC, not journalists at the ABC, something to really worry about. If anybody else gets into power other than the Liberal Party or the Labor Party at the next election, the ABC is done for. We will hold Pauline's feet to the flame and make her stick by her promise to get rid of it. Now, admittedly, in regional areas plays a great role, should be kept going for them, 100%. But these big glass palaces they've built for themselves in Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane, I think, need to be taken down. They've just built a new one in Adelaide, which is going to be core to the central communication system for the nation. Doesn't really matter whether you're an ABC network affiliate or any other radio or TV channel. You'll have access to the infrastructure of the ABC. I can see the benefits in this, but there's a huge amount of power in it. And what do we get out of the ABC? Nothing that I can see of any value, really. You can't watch Media Watch anymore because the lefty that they've put in charge of that is just bullshit after bullshit. Occasionally, I used to watch Four Corners. I think the last time I watched a Four Corners thing was the Four Corners reporter that went and had a chat with Johnny Q and talked to some of the West Australian sheriffs. I was intrigued to learn that that reporter now no longer works for the ABC, that he was alleged that he had some very well-defined links and connections to organised crime in Sydney and to certain families in Sydney. And I think the ABC thought better of keeping him there because of those alleged affiliations. Haven't heard or seen anything of him since, but I didn't think much of him as a journalist at the time. So Four Corners has gone as any kind of a flagship program as far as I can ascertain. There is that weird woman who I see her as a little Dalek. Doctor Who fans will understand. She just sits behind that chair at the 7:30 report and says, "Exterminate," to whoever's sitting across from her that isn't on the left. God help anybody I don't know that anybody that isn't on the left goes on there anymore. Why would you? Why would you? People of Australia, you will be pleased to know that there will no longer be any cause for the Australian Defence Forces to go and protect any new arrivals in Australia coming from the subcontinent. India are sending their Air Force, or at least this part of their Air Force. I think they're F-16s that they're flying. And they've got 1 or 2 engines on the back. Oh, they're Falcons, maybe. Getting tanked up for the drive here. They're coming over to operate in the next pitch black exercises, which I think start next week or toward the end of this month. And look, not quite sure how many of those Indian aircraft will be involved. Certainly more than 2, I suspect. Rockhampton Airport is always a very, very, very good place if you're a plane spotter when these exercises go on. Shoalwater Bay is not too far away. And a couple of the international contingent who come for these exercises, namely Singapore, I want to say Vietnam, Solomons, we may have some New Guinea service people there. There's quite a few coming from all over the world. Obviously, the Americans are involved. The Brits, I'm not sure if we're talking to the Brits or not at the moment, but at any rate, that is an exercise that looks to try and keep all the people that we might be not fighting against talking to each other in a cohesive war-fighting kind of way. And then, obviously, if it gets to a point where we do have to go and fight against them, we hope we haven't showed them all our tricks. How confusing does it get when you read the newspaper? One day it says, why have 4 children when you could have 7? And then the next day it says, want to fight climate change? Have fewer children. If ever there was an advert to buy The Guardian and use it to wrap up your cockie's shit in the morning, that, I think, would probably be one of them. Some news out of Turkey. Now, you'll remember that I've said that Israel has had its eye, and when I say Israel, I say Bibi Netanyahu, has had his eye on Turkey for a little while. He and Ben Gurion, the bloody war minister that he has, have both identified Turkey as the next great Satan. Clearly, they think they're done with Iran. Well, Turkey have a problem with that. Istanbul court have issued an international arrest warrant for Netanyahu over the detention of Gaza Aid Flotilla members, part of sweeping criminal lawsuit against Netanyahu and several senior Israeli officers over alleged genocide, crimes against humanity, torture, and other offences. Now, there is no doubt that there is a lot of talk about the torture that went on with the people that were on that flotilla, the Gaza flotilla. There were a number of Australians who I'm led to believe were tortured. They have come out, I think, and one of them has come out and spoken not so much about his personal torture, about other people's torture. So I guess you'd call that hearsay. Maybe we'll just move on from it. However, Turkey is pushing it hard, and here is the International Criminal Court warrant for Netanyahu. Now, yip-yah, who's going to arrest him? Nope. Didn't hear a word. So, the International Criminal Court doesn't have an effective arm to go and capture him and bring him before the court. America has a very effective way of finding criminals like that. It's called a bounty. And maybe we could get Dog. Is Dog still alive? Dog the bounty hunter. Or maybe we can get Pup, his son, because Dog may have crossed the Rainbow Bridge by now. We can get him found, picked up, coordinated to be dropped at an international criminal court of your choice. I know that there are soldiers of fortune who would take the job if somebody wanted to put the money up. Anybody want to put the money up? I'm asking for a friend in Turkey. Donald Trump's going to make a speech tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock our time, a speech to the nation. They are touting this as going to be earth-shattering, world-stopping, global-changing. They're touting it as a whole heap of things. All the while, no one knows what he's going to say. If I had to be picking a topic, and there are a few things he could talk about and he probably will talk about, but Donald Trump likes to talk about himself more than anything else. And there is one thing that needs to be sorted out before midterms, if midterms are going to happen, can happen. And what is that thing? That is the election result from 2020. Now, we've spoken about it for years, that many of us believe that that result was rigged. I personally have shown you in shows previous exactly how it was rigged. I have shown you how the Vatican was involved, how a satellite uplink facility in Italy was involved, how a server farm in Germany and another one in Spain were heavily involved, how Mossad satellite killers were involved, and how Mossad satellites were able to tap into the American system and upload in real time different vote counts in different areas. The evidence is all there. It's very in-depth. It's buried, and you've really got to go looking for it. Thankfully, a lot of us did. And we have known, just as Trump has known, and just as every congressman, every senator in the US has known, or may not have wanted to believe, but they've known that it was rigged. 100%. We've seen the videos of them closing the count centers down and then wheeling out suitcase loads of votes and putting them through the machine, the vast majority of them for Biden. We've seen the statistical graphs that show a huge spike that point to the exact time all of this took place in the closed counting centers. How long did it take California to count the vote recently? Over a week. There is no reason for that unless you are jacking with the vote. And now, thankfully, it appears that the American people are catching up with it. Well, Trump has been wailing about the 2020 result, and quite rightly so, for the last 5 years. I think he is potentially going to put forward all the evidence and a finding from the Supreme Court that supports that hypothesis. I think you might also find a bit of the conversation could also be around Barack Obama and his complicit actions in what took place there. These were treasonous actions, 100% treasonous, along with the actions of Comey, the actions of Clapper, the actions of Clinton, and so many others. This speech at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, carried live on Sky from memory, but you never know. A couple of the free-to-airs might take it, or ABC will probably take it, ABC News Channel. Although they'd probably delay it and edit out the parts they don't like. And that is one of the other things Trump does battle. So it's going to be rather interesting to see what happens there. I came across this today while doing a little bit of research. 90% white counties in the US in 1920. So that's changed a lot in 100 years. Changed a real lot. Multiculturalism, hey? Get a load of this. Countries with the most arrests for online comments. Now, these are comments where you might be saying, oh, listen, I don't think I agree with your book or what you said or what you wear. But the United Kingdom is double the amount of arrests. These are arrests for, I hesitate to say anti-Semitic comments because I don't know if that's the case, but just about in every other form. And I guess if you were going to talk about the spicy cough in any kind of negative way, well, they'd probably have a go at you about that too. The whole thing just makes me sick, although not as sick as Albo, apparently. Albo has confirmed that he's sick. We've known that for years, absolute years. We just don't see him on the road. Can't point the right dickhead at him at the right time.
You let
we know
one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!